All right, welcome back, beautiful people, to the New Black Wall Street Book Club, where Black folk do read. You put in a book, and we absolutely will find it. I'm your host, ERGJ, your certified financial educator, CEO of ERGJ Enterprises and the Black Bazaar. And we are going to be continuing our journey today into Tales of the Immortals origins, the origins of the Tales of the Immortals. So hopefully you guys are ready to rock and roll. We're going to get right into this thing in just a second, man. Hit the like button, the share button. Also, let us know where you're connecting from. Y'all know what time it is. Mr. DJ, hit the music.
New Black Wall Street Book Club. Evan Jefferson, brother, much love. Educating, elevating, because in knowledge is the power and we'll never give it up. Literature's for the masses. Where to put your money down, now how to watch your assets. Yeah, uplifting others is a passion. My brother Evan, he will turn it into action. New Black Wall Street Book Club. You should come read with us. Yeah, we comprehend and discuss. Yeah, we all just come together. There's no limit for us. Here comes your host, New Black Wall Street. Evan, take it away. New Black Wall Street Book Club. New Black Wall Street Book Club.
All right, beautiful people, man, readers and leaders, man. Thanks so much for joining us, man. Let us know where you're connected from, what city, what state, what country, what city, what state, what country. Hit the like button, the share button, tag button, all that good stuff. Subscribe button, follow button, support button. Just hit all the buttons. That's just what you do. We're going to continue our journey into Tales of the Immortals. We are now into our second short story in this book, written by the Day Brothers. And you can find this book by going to From Swords and Scales is the name of the company. And the website is www.swordsandscales.com, www.swordsandscales.com. Whole premise or whole point of this broadcast is to highlight Black authors. And so if you are a Black author or know a Black author that's written some pretty dope stuff, make sure you have them inbox us, and we'll see about bringing their literature to the forefront and giving them some exposure through our program. I will say that we do focus primarily on business, money, and also personal development books. So if it's something outside of that those genres, I probably won't select it. But if it's dope, I might just. You just never know. So that's just what we do, man. What's going on? Glenda Tate Williams in the house. Thanks so much for joining us. Kings Mountain, North Carolina. What's going on, Ms. McLam? I got to reach out to you, Ms. McLam. Hopefully, we can reschedule and get you on to our broadcast Black Woman Wednesday. Definitely want to chop it up with you with the things that you're doing over in that SEO space out of Huntsville. I believe that's Alabama. I believe that's where you are. But anyway, so today we're going to get into our second short story. And this is a story about the origin of a seraphim. Seraphim. Now, I can't wait to get, I think I'm going to have next Monday, I'm going to have the authors on because they picked some language or some vocab language. Yeah. English is a language. So they picked some language that I think is, African in nature or from the continent in nature with this particular book. And this is a book that kind of discusses a journey to discovering the 7 virtues represented through individual characters. And today we'll talk about Seraphim. That's right, Seraphim. What's going on with your brother Weathersby? What's going on, man? Thanks so much for joining us here. Absolutely, man. So yeah, we're gonna honor some Black authors. That's what we do. New Black Wall Street Book Club. Let's read. Zar Land, the second realm, the land of scorching heat and beautiful cliffs. All things in the celestial realms are connected, and our one affects the all. Everybody put in console connected. All things in the celestial realm are connected, and one affects the all. From the wars and burning desires of the prime realm of Ngolabwe, there emerged a land unforgiving in its desolate expanses and red deserts, and yet it was also a realm enchanted with tales of riches and hidden treasures. The wise men and women of Zar recounted tales of enlightened masters and who had scaled the highest and most rugged cliffs to attain abiding fulfillment. Some doubted such tales in a literal sense and accepted it as stories of hope and promise for the average human. For life was hard here in Zar Land. The necessity for communal cooperation and living was paramount for survival in the harsh, arid lands. The early settlers to the land organized themselves around wells and other communities with honored traditions. And like most other peoples, the Zarians were not immune to occasional internecine conflicts and fighting. Most disputes arose out of a control of scarce water supplies and trade routes. From the early histories of Zara, there is an oft-told story of how out of the warring tribes there arose 5 enlightened warriors that unified the people into one state. This federation among the tribes would be the foundation for the establishment of the Saracen Empire. The nature of its leaders was devout adherence to Al-Hulum, or the way of righteousness. A strong national identity was forged, and after a few hundred years, the Saracen Empire had flourished into the mightiest nation in all of Zar land. Neighboring cities and countries were subdued and assimilated into Saracen culture. The skill and courage of the Saracen warriors became legendary and even passed into the realm of myth. Tales of heroes and heroines echoed over the melodies of a lowly oud, hunting the vast expanses of sand in between, enchanting the young to step onto the warrior's path. It is from this land of passion, power, and courage that the story of one of the most endearing characters in the long history of Zara arises to be told and remembered. Lone stars shone brightly in the twilight sky around the round earth and clay home of the village wise man Abba Fatim and his wife Shashinta, who was in labor with child. It will later be told that the star was the sign of birth of a special soul who would impact the minds of many people. The child was named Khadija Asa Fatim, which meant she was born to see destiny fulfilled. And from the moment that she first opened her eyes, her parents knew that their newborn baby girl was very special indeed. Abba Fatim was a devoutly religious and pious individual. He was well known throughout the provinces of Mogadonlil as a fair and prudent man. He even held some influence within the walls of the imperial Saracen capital city amongst the clergy. Despite his influence, Abba possessed an attitude of humility and non-deference to rank and title. He was devout and sincere in his faith and adherence to the Al-Hulum, as he regarded none of his national affairs as more important than his family. So when he discovered that his daughter at the age of 8 months possessed special abilities, he became even more committed to protecting her. One day, upon returning home from a diplomatic meeting with caravan patrons, his wife, Shashinta, called him into the back room where he had just finished nursing the infant child. "Come, husband," she spoke softly. "Look into her eyes and tell me what you see." Abba dropped his coat onto a wooden rack, walked over to where his wife was sitting with the child, and intently bent over to look into the small face of his daughter. Khadija opened her eyes, and immediately Abba was transfixed by her innocent gaze. He felt as if she could read his mind, and she could look straight into the innermost being with crystal clarity and the perfect non-judgment of a pure spirit. Khadija smiled very big, looking at her father, and began to coo. Abba grasped as he realized that his baby girl had just read his heart, and she smiled at what she saw in his spirit. Knowing that the Zarian people can be given to jealous and superstition, Abba and Shashinta both vowed to do their best to protect their daughter from those who would be in fear and ignorant of her gifts. As Khadija grew, she never found a challenge in making plenty of friends in the neighboring villages, including her own. She stood several inches above the tallest boy and was swift of foot, earning her name La Swala, or Gazelle of Mugandalil. The other children followed her around in packs, and she treated all of her friends with kindness and admonished them with humor as someone hoary and wise might. Still, not everyone was taken with the charm and wit. Some are afflicted with the bane of envy and spite from a very young age. Colonel Jallo, proud son of decorated Saracen commander Akil Kamajala, could not stand the attention that Khadija received. As young children, he frequently challenged her to physical contests and was just as frequently beat. Even when Khadija tried to let him win a mule hopping contest, the onlooking crowds of children heckled Kerner, saying she excelled him even in her charity to his lost cause. The pressure to live up to his father's expectations and the lack of cultivation of his character caused him to grow into a boastful and vindictive individual. And it seemed his stifled heart only moved to counterspin against Khadija's bright light. At the age of 17, Khadija informed her parents that her desire to join the coming year's march of new recruits. Every year, the young who were of qualifying age and had passed all the necessary rites of passage left their homes and joined in a march across the desert to become initiates in training in the Saracen military. The fighting spirit of the Saracens attracted many volunteers, and among the more rural communities, it was considered a prestigious mark of distinction to serve. Abba grieved in his heart that at the thought that his only daughter wanted to pursue a life in the Saracen military, which was rarely enacted. And it was he on trips to the capital city held audience with government officials making petition on behalf of the poorer provinces. Their sons and daughters compromised the bulk of the cavalry ranks, and it was their blood that spilled for the glory of the empire. Abul Fatim was not a pacifist, but he believed in and lobbied for the judicious restraint of materialistic overexertion at the risk of corruption and guarding against the departing from Al-Hulum. He was respected by many officials, but he was also closely watched. Yet knowing that his daughter Khadijah will one day be drawn by the same patriotic spirit that he had many moons ago, Abu was prepared for the moment and gracefully gave her his blessing. On the eve of the march of initiates, Khadijah couldn't sleep, so she packed and unpacked several times to make sure she had only what she needed. At sunrise, the call of the Natai horn bleated from the desert beyond the village walls. Young people began filing out of their homes, one by one walking, some trotting towards the sound of the horn. Some hugged their parents as they went. One stooped to console a crying younger sibling before eventually sprinting off towards the village outer wall and the growing rank of new initiates. Inside of her house, Khadijah sat on the mat, dressed in loose-fitting pants and a jacket. She placed a few items in her knapsack and drew the string tight to close it. She thoughtfully then picked up a wood carving and held it up to look at it for a moment. Her mother appears at the door to her room and observes without Khadijah noticing at first. Then she speaks. It's hard to believe that your father carved that for you all those years ago. Khadijah swung her head around to see her mother standing in the doorway. You've grown up so fast, and I'm so very proud of you. Khadijah jumped up and embraced her mother. I don't want to leave you, Umi, she said. That's her head buried in her mother's bosom like a little girl. Her mother gently strokes Khadijah's head. I will always be with you wherever you go, my dear. Besides, you made your decision. It is your destiny to be great. The time has just come for you to begin that journey. Now that you've gathered your belongings, go and see your father before the caravan departs. He is waiting on you. Al Fatim is standing at the edge of his property, looking out across the vast desert with his back to his house. He hears her approaching at a near distance and turns his ear towards her without looking at her. Papa! Khadijah stops behind him. Her father turns around, his face stern, trying to hide emotions. Papa! It's almost time for me to go, Papa. Her eyes well with the tears. Her father takes a deep breath and begins to talk to her. Khadijah, from the day you were born, I knew the Creator had blessed our family with a special soul. You have great compassion in you, as well as tremendous courage. He chuckles. You've always been very brave. He continued. Now I realize that the Creator had not only blessed our family, but you are meant to be a blessing to this nation and to the world. But I must warn you, my dear. You possess a gift that, as wonderful as it is, many men will fear you. And when men fear something that they cannot control, they seek to destroy it. You possess the power to see into the hearts of men. You have done this with me many times. It is because of you that I have striven to live as upright as possible. I never wanted to disappoint you. Khadijah listened intently, her arms limp at her side. You must be careful and protect yourself, daughter, he continued with a finger pointing at her. The world is full of wicked men, full of pride and avarice. If I could change your mind to stay and to help your mother, I would, but I know that it is of no use. You are destined for greatness, and I will not stand in your way, but you must protect yourself because I cannot be there to do it. Yah stretched his arms, and Khadijah flung herself into the embrace of her father with tears streaming down her face. A tear dropped from her father's eye and lands on the top of her head. The jangle and clamor of an approaching company of soldiers could be heard. The lead lieutenant had been riding on horseback, shouting commands at the troops of young initiates who were on foot trudging through the sand under the weight of their knapsacks and supplies. There were several soldiers on horseback flanking a troop of would-be soldiers. Khadijah lifts her head from her father's chest and she hears the sound of the approaching troops. She looks excitedly up to her father's face and smiles. Papa, I love you so much. I promise I'll make you and Umi very proud. And here's looks like a picture of maybe Seraphim on horseback here. Pretty cool illustration. Yeah, man. Yeah, real. I'm trying to get through these words, boy. Some of these are tough. Where was I? Okay, here we go. Let's keep going. We only got 2 more pages left. 3 more pages. I know you will, my daughter. Go now. To the Imperial Guard will not tolerate any tardiness in falling in, not even from you, my special child. Go now. He motioned his head. Khadijah paused for a brief second, looking and smiling at her father, and then she turned and began to run towards the passing troop. Her knapsack bounced as she sprinted across her family's courtyard out into the street. As she ran closer, she could see many of her childhood friends and neighbors laboring under the stress of marching with loads on their backs. As she got close, a guard on horseback yelled at her, "Initiates of Mungandalia, fall in here." He pointed a straight whip towards some 40 feet in front of him, where she was to join the ranks and march. Kadia, somewhat nervous, jostled her way into the crowded ranks of adolescent youth. One of the young men turned around and saw Kadia smile brightly at her. She returned the smile. Suddenly, she felt a shove from behind and surged forward, almost losing her balance. She looked behind her with an alarmed expression. The initiate behind her had a frown look on his face. It was Kerna Jallo, her childhood rival, who had pushed her. "Keep up and don't get in my way, daughter Fatim. This is no place for weak girls." "You there!" the guard yelled at them. "Keep my ranks in order or you'll be cast out, and the desert wolves will surely find you before any of your beloved family members can." Kadir frowned at Kerna and resumed looking forward and settling into her place. Some of the village people waved at the troop as it passed, sending their young sons and daughters off with joy and sadness. It is important for the reader to understand Kadia's humble and respectful beginnings. For in her path ahead, she would face grueling and soul-gripping challenges, to not be changed for the worse by life's adversities, but to become a living example of the triumph and noble character and conscience over corruption and hate is the greatest honor. To arrive at strength and mastery and to choose to utilize these powers to protect the less fortunate instead of oppressing them in a way of the immortals. The troop of new initiates arrived at the palace training grounds after a week-long trek through the desert. It is not long before Kadia caught the attention of the higher-ranked officers, and she was moved to a different group of initiates. The elite training guard was much smaller than the infantry troop, and new recruits were classed with higher-ranked soldiers for training and exercises. Kadia earned her place among the elites and as having great potential as a combatant. Her notoriety eventually caught the attention of General Akar, the war hero. At the end of a 6-month training period, and fighting tournament among the elite guard was held as was customary. The highest-ranking officials would make appearances to view the best of the best. The general, along with 2 of his majors, sat at a table for some 20 feet away from a raised wooden platform. The commentator called for the next 2 combatants. Kadia stepped her foot into the platform and loosely gripped her bow staff. Her opponent loaded the stage and approached on the opposite end. "Fight!" the officiator yelled. The young soldier opposed Kadia immediately, charged her with a loud, impressive battle cry. He was the son of one of the brigadier generals and was expected to become the captain of the elite guard. Kadia focused her breathing. His attack came in lunging, offering her a split-second opportunity to move into a center and counter the move with a reverse arm throw. He slammed to the wooden platform with such force that the spectators all exclaimed. That night, Kadia was ordered to attend the general's feast, where she met face-to-face with General Akar. She had looked into the eyes and hearts of many men and saw what they concealed: hate, jealousy, fear, and mostly shame. But when she looked into the general's eyes, it was like looking into a black night sky. Nothing reflected from within him, only coldness and emptiness. He seemed to recognize the probing energy of Kadia's gaze. She felt suddenly that if she was being pulled into the abyss of a soulless glare. She shook herself out of the stare, and those sitting close by shifted, having noticed the strange exchange between the 2 of them. Word spread of Kadia's success and progress within the elite training guard ranks. Among the lower-ranked initiate cadets, she became very popular and a bit of a celebrity, not unlike her formative years in the village and province of Mugandala. She always handled popularity with grace and ease, but the military was a bit different. There were rumors beginning to spread that she possessed special mental powers that allowed her to get into the heads of her opponents and dominate them through an unfair advantage. They said that she just looked at you and controlled one's thoughts. Many told of their encounters with her and the story of on a life of its own in the ranks of the mighty Saracen army. Her father had warned that men would seek to destroy that which it is that they could not understand or control. Men will seek to destroy that which it is that they cannot understand or control. And so, in an act of cowardice, a masked individual slipped into a barrack tent in the middle of the night where Khadija slept. In an attempt to destroy her gift for sight, as well as her promising career in the elite guard, the assailant applied drops of scorpion balm into her eyes. When Abu Fatim and his wife arrived at the outpost of military campground, campground after having been summoned there, they found her daughter quietly weeping with disappointment and dejection about her. While Abba spoke to the lieutenant in charge, her mother looked close into Khadijah's face and soon realized that her daughter could not open her eyes to see the face which accompanied the familiar voice that softly called to her. Abba flew into an outrage at the act that had been committed against his daughter. They were told that she was unfit to continue training, that an ongoing investigation was underway to find the perpetrator. The Fatim family returned to Mughal Dalil, and for a year, life was spent trying to get back to normal for Khadijah. But her life was anything but normal. She could no longer see. Only a severe grayish blur appeared when she opened her eyelids. One day, Abba returned home to find his daughter practicing a sword form in the courtyard with her eyes closed. She moved slowly, but the efficacy and gracefulness of her motion inspired within her father the desire to help her continue her training. Unsure at first, Khadijah agreed to visit the faraway village of one of her father's associates to continue her training. It was reported that she had special abilities and had taught others to overcome the disability of blindness to unlock her greater skills. There was very little that could be told about this mysterious warrior other than his name, Master Kubai, and the fact that little could be told about his clan and the clan of Zangar warriors and their exact origins and whereabouts. Yet and still, her father was able to somehow arrange for Khadijah to continue training among this secret clan far to the east. And here's another picture. It looks like she's going from a warrior to like a ninja or something like that. I don't know. A ninja or something like that. Look at that. That's pretty dope. Yeah, it looks like she's about to be a ninja. All right, anyway, let's keep going. The story will be told at length in other episodes. So for now, in this origin tale, we shall fast forward to when Khadijah emerges from the forest of grown women and skilled assassin. That's right, assassin. Having completed her training with the Zangar clan, she returns to the Saracen military camp. Keeping her forest training and Master Kubai's secret, she convinces the imperial court of her loyalty to the Saracen empire and a desire to lead the army in extending its rightful and just rule. She quickly resumes her dominance as a warrior among the other guards and rises to the rank of lieutenant in a short period of time. After several successful military campaigns against the barbaric tribes of the desert, Khadijah is placed in command of force and promoted to the rank of captain. She is then given a new name entitled Seraphim. First in command of the Order of Wings. No longer known by the name of Khadijah Fatim, Seraphim will lead the Saracen army to victory over many different peoples in many different lands. But after so much bloodshed and seeing unending cause of war, she begins to soul search for a purpose. For she had always believed the righteous cause of the Saracen Empire and military. After faithfully overhearing the clandestine meeting between the Saracen general and the supposed enemy ruler, she painfully realized what she had most feared, that the military was used as a tool by the corrupt and greedy to plunder and exploit vulnerable lands. In an act of defiance, she turned a sword against her own compatriots to stop the unlawful invasion of a walled city. She was ultimately subdued, captured, and sentenced to death for treason. But there are courts and councils that exist and govern beyond terrestrial soils and governments. Seraphim's sense of justice and willingness to die for those principles was being closely observed by the Sky Council, a group of advanced beings in a higher dimension that oversaw the affairs of the entire realms. On the eve of her execution, she was visited by a supernatural force and transfigured into a greater form. When guards came to her tower the next morning to deliver her to the execution squad, all they found was an empty cell save of 3 large white feathers on the floor. Seraphim had transcended the mortal life of a soldier and had become a purveyor of justice in the world, and now existed as a winged avenger among the immortals. So she had a transformer, took on a place. And that is the origin of Seraphim. And I'll tell you, I got a few takeaways from here, man. Growing up as a young girl, she had some special powers that she had, and she learned that in this life, in this society, that people are not, do not do very kind to your special powers. And especially when you display them, and we kept hearing that men look to destroy what they cannot understand and what they can't control. And I want to say this: I believe there's some things about you that people do not understand, nor can they control. And you're probably just like Seraphim. You got people looking to destroy your dreams, your gifts, your talents, and your abilities. But also, like Seraphim, understand that there's a higher power. Everybody put in console, higher power There's a higher power watching over you, just like her. It says, hey, as long as you've been willing, your willingness to die for those supreme principles, you're being closely observed, and God will protect you as well. So yeah, the origin of Sara Fim, man, from it looks like warrior, being blinded by her peers, still going through her going to training and becoming a revered assassin, and then ultimately being transformed to join the Immortals because she fought for what was right. All right. So again, guys, Tales of the Immortals Origins. This is a new book by the Day Brothers. We got a black comic book, right? That you can support. You simply, again, it's through Swords and Scales. You just simply go to the website, www.swordsandScales.com. This is just a short story. I think you got 7 little short stories. So that was short story number 2. I may not go through all 7 through our time here in this book, but we'll go through about 4 or 5, and then we'll leave the rest for you to pick up the book and finish reading the book itself. But you can support Black authors by actually picking up this book, okay? You can support some Black authors by actually picking up this book. Hey, man, I want to say thanks so much for tuning in today to our episode of the New Black Wall Street Book Club. I want you guys to remember this, that it takes a village. It starts with us. Let's build as we climb together. We all we got, beautiful people. Matter of fact, we all we need. And thank God that's more than enough. Black folk do read. Readers are leaders. Until next episode, you know what time it is. Mr. DJ, hit the music.
New black. It's the New Black Wall Street Book Club. New Black Wall Street. With your host, Evan Jefferson. It's time for us to go. Yeah. Now, you ain't got to leave the computer, but we encourage you to get out there and learn and apply all the things you learn at the New Black Wall Street Book Club. Yeah. The New Black Wall Street. The New Black Wall Street.